Okay, I think we're live. I hope we're live. Hello, everyone. Danny Egan here aboard the deck of Te Amo, bringing me love from Te Amo. It's the 5th of June, and it was today that I put my first day in as a new resident, as a new person who stayed in California anyways, at the office. So a couple major milestones gonna fire off here rapid, jiffy, quick, like you please. But this is the first full day of work that I put in a year ago today at the office. I'm gonna unmute my sound just in case anybody's trying to talk to me. Hello, Jessica. How are you? I hope you're doing well. I promise I won't harass you as much as Bowden does. So it is another cloudy day here at Te Amo. It's a very rare kind of cloudy day. I apologize, my camera setup is a little bit hodgepodge, so if I bounce the rail, that happens. So I apologize ahead of time. I will do my best to keep that camera steady. I kind of had to set it up a little bit weird, kind of refining how to set everything up, make it work, you know, just doing what I can. Let's see if anybody's over on the other multi-stream. No. So if you're watching from Facebook, it's easier for me to interact with your text, your text chats if you swing over to YouTube. I'll probably always stream it to Facebook if I can, just because I know some of you might not be able to access YouTube for whatever reason. And I know a lot of you found me on Facebook originally, but YouTube is going to become the number one focus of these streams. So if you swing over to YouTube, throw the like, throw the sub, throw the follow, whatever it is, I'd very much appreciate it, and it'll make it a lot easier for me to interact with you anyways. All those links should be available in numerous places, so I'm just trust that y'all can figure that out. If you can't, shoot me a message, we'll put it together. All right, cool. I'm going to unmute myself from the live chat in Discord, just in case anybody swings in and says hello, and bring back up the platform. So one of the things I wanted to do today is establish a current condition of my video vlogging super kit. It's actually not that much. It's a really simple set of gear, and there's a couple of wish items on the gear list. And so what I have is I have the yellow flag, the yellow naval flag laid out here. Brownie points to anybody who can tell me what it stands for. It's super relevant in this day and age. So there's that. We'll leave it at that. So I have this yellow flag laid out as a way to offset the different things that I'm going to put in front of the camera. And let's get the show on the road, shall we? We shall. So the first thing I use a lot is this right here. This is my cell phone. Everything runs through this thing. It's just a Google Pixel Xl2. It takes phenomenal pictures. There's no words for how awesome this thing is. And the Google service is above and beyond awesome too. I can usually just point and click, and without filters or without anything, make photos that go straight on Instagram, maybe cut and crop them a little bit, but usually people really enjoy the resolution this thing's capable of. And so this right here actually does a lot of my still work, and up until very recently, all of my live was done through this device. So super happy with it. I'll set that back off to one side in case I hear from somebody who wants to chat while I'm trying to do this. The next workhorse of the kit is easily the point and shoot camera that I have. This came highly recommended by Mr. Bowden. All good cameras require a good case. This is the Rx100 Mark 6. Very simple camera, at least until you start digging into it. Very complicated when you get into all of its features and functions. This is a point and shoot camera. It's got great optical zoom. lots of neat features that make it very rapid to deploy pictures that you take, videos that you take via Bluetooth or whatever, NFC, Wi-Fi even. I wish I could stream with it. I bet you I can. I just haven't figured out how yet. But this guy right here is definitely a workhorse. All the pictures I took of Michigan and leaving Michigan was done on this camera. The super macro pictures of the snake I took that everybody loved was done with this guy. Hello, Mark. How are you, sir? So there's that camera. And, of course, we're going to put that cell phone back out here. Let's throw these cords off to one side. Excuse me. I got allergies and my cough is kicking in. The next major component is probably the other camera. So this is my main roll camera. This is everything I put on YouTube is done through this guy right here. It shoots 4K. It does everything I could possibly want, except for capture B-roll. That's this camera right here. So this is the Sony FDR X3000, the X3000, and it's waterproof case, which it comes with. This guy right here sits on the back rail of the boat. And it just runs. It runs and runs and runs, and I forget to change the batteries, and then I change the batteries, and then it runs and runs some more. It does time-lapse natively, and it shoots fantastic time-lapse. I have absolutely zero complaints with this. This actually was instrumental in purchasing the boat. I sent the diver down with this camera, and he videotaped the bottom of the boat for me so that I didn't have to dive on the boat myself. And he did that with this camera here. This camera comes also with like handheld rigs and various lenses or like lens protectors and such. All very highly recommended. When it comes to audio, actually, before I do that, let's take a look at this. One of the neat things about these cameras is they all use the same battery. And that battery is this guy right here. It's the NPBX1. It's like a $40 battery. It's not cheap. But it's phenomenal in that it takes a really fast charge and it switches in and out of the two cameras. And so if I'm in a hurry and I got no camera battery left on the main, I'll steal from the B-roll or vice versa. Hello, Andrew Cole. Welcome to the chat. Very important piece of the kit. Very handy. And I carry like 5 or 6 extra batteries just to keep things rolling. So there's that little extra accessory. When it comes to sound, I have a device that I am a huge fan of, okay? And it's actually what I'm talking to you with right now. I will set it up so that I can capture ambient noise. I'll set it up so I can do live vocals like this with you guys. Put it in key spots and just grab what I can with it. So I got to actually unmount it from the wall right quick. So a little bit of radio or microphone noise here. Make sure I don't tear anything up. So this is the Zoom H5 with the windsock on it. Try to find a good angle here where I can put the whole thing in the frame for you guys. This is the Zoom H5. It's got XLR and quarter inputs. It does 2-channel recording. The X6 does 4-channel, and I'm kind of considering it for various toy-based reasons. And it has a giant windsock on it currently. We'll take that off. You can see it's got the, I think they're called XY mic arrangement on it. I'm not entirely sure. Nice stereo microphone. You control the channels here, the audio levels of the channels with these knobs here. You control the master with this knob up here. And you can see the audio as I talk is bouncing right here on the Vox. So you can actually observe the sound levels as you're recording, and you don't have to rely on post-production to make sure your levels aren't too bad. And then these lights down here on the LR channels, they'll be lit up if they're on and active, and they'll flicker if you're overdriving them, if you're peaking them. So really handy. Oh, right there. See, I just peaked it by knocking onto it. Really handy device. Super fancy. Vastly more than I needed, but very effective. So there's that recorder. And in order to do the rest of the stream, I'm going to put it back up where it belongs so I can keep talking to you. Un moment. Okay, so the audio is probably back to resembling normal. That sound device comes with cases. Don't ever get rid of the cases for these things. They keep them safe. So this guy here is pretty straightforward. It doesn't have room for the windsock, but that's okay. I use a couple of different styles of camera mounting. This device here came highly recommended by Chris. Again, this is a small rig rail clamp for holding cameras and microphones. I'm actually using it currently. I'm using 2 more of these right now. It's what's holding this camera here and the microphone next to my face here. Very handy. Can be reconfigured in any number of positions, obviously. Different size mounting screws for various things, and the throat on this thing is actually really impressive how much it can clamp onto at one time. So very rapid to deploy. I was a big fan of Gorillapods until I discovered this thing with Chris's help. Speaking of Gorillapods, this is my Joby Gorillapod. The neat thing about this guy is all the legs. Oh, there's a neighbor working on a boat. Yeah, well, I'm seriously looking into ASMR microphones and such, but even this thing is more than capable. So the really neat thing about these legs is they're highly flexible, and you can bend them any which way you want. And so when you do that, let's figure out a spot that works for this guy, because I'm running out of room on the platform. You can see I can set it up in any number of ways, and there it's it looks pretty obnoxious. A ball gimbal on the top, so you can rapidly move the where the camera mounts, and you can actually flip it up and change its attitude. This shoe right here, there's actually a little plate that goes into that. I don't know where that's at. It's probably in the backpack. And you can leave that attached to your cameras so that you can switch cameras on and off the tripods very rapidly. So there's that guy. When it comes to the handheld cameras, I don't recommend actually trying to hold onto the camera while using it. And so I have this guy here, which is a handheld unit like that. There's my camera. And so I can use this guy to hold the camera. And furthermore, these buttons here via this data connector allow me to control the camera with my thumb without trying to reach up and work the screen, right? Even better, it expands out and becomes its own little tripod. So, nice stable way to put the camera down and not worry about it getting damaged, falling over or whatever. To supplement the Google Pixel phone, I have this guy here. This is a active gimbal system, and it allows me to control the camera while moving. It also expands out into a selfie mode so that I can capture a picture of myself and make it look like somebody else is taking the picture, I guess. Seriously easy system to use. You'll notice that it's already balancing itself. You just turn it on, and the head will correct itself. Now you can notice this platform here, which is where the camera would mount. There's a trigger on the bottom, and you'll see I'm like turning the handle, and it's holding itself true. It's freaking out because it doesn't have a camera to hold, or it also uses the accelerometer in the phone, and so it's kind of having a hissy fit because it's expecting the accelerometer data. So we'll shut that back down before it complains fully. So, neat little toy. I don't use it as much as I could, but then again, I don't use as much as this kit in general as I could. So, that's kind of why I'm doing this video, is because I'm getting ready to start kicking off a series of YouTube videos, or I'm going to hope to anyways. This one's kind of neat. This is the battery charger for the cameras, but it's got a USB port on it, so I can actually take the batteries from the cameras, switch this to USB power here, and charge other devices from the camera batteries. Kind of neat, right? So, and then the probably the most expensive component of the kit is the drone. Very expensive. So we're gonna move a couple things around here. So I use a Mavic 2 Pro. It's less of a drone and more of a flying camera. It collapses down, so it fits into a very tiny space very easily. I also use the smart controller for this drone, which is this guy here. The normal controller for this allows you to put your cell phone here as opposed to giving you the screen, and this self-contains all the software to control the camera, or the flying camera, right? The antennas are on the back, and you just flip them up, which gives you access to your joysticks for your controllers here and here, right? And then this guy lets you go up and down, left and up and down, turn left, turn right, strafe left, strafe right, and forward and back, right? That's all you really need. And then various other little hat switches and doodads to make it do this, that, and the other. The drone itself, we're going to set the controller off to one side. The drone itself folds up, as you can see. Pretty easy to deploy. You just unfold the arms. And there you go. There's the drone deployed. The drone also has a gimbal lock on the camera, so that's that guy there. You just take that little tab off the bottom. Now the gimbal is free. To fix one of the blades, I just had to replace one the other day. I kind of got a little too close to a building. Pretty straightforward. You hold the silver housing. You just hold that, you push down, you give a little twist, and you lift off, and now there's the blade in your hands, right? Very simple. System's easy to fly. I taught a kid how to fly it very recently. When I was back in Michigan, and he flew it farther than I ever had, actually. He took it like a mile and a half away, and he got some great video, actually, of a cell repeating tower. He's like in his early teens. Hey Dave, thanks for the like, buddy. He's in his early teens, and still exploring life and super into tech and technology, and he got a huge kick out of the opportunity to fly the drone. Ran the battery right out of it on me. You have a Mavic Air, Colonel Panic? Is that what you're saying? I'm kind of thinking about getting one. So I have a drone I don't care about as much. This goofy drone here is way too expensive. And the first thing I did was break the controller. The stock controller that comes with the Mavic 2, I'm not sold. Spend the extra money and get the upgraded controller. So I got a bit of a sunset going on here, so we might flip the camera around. Yeah, that's the other thing about DJI is it's stupid easy. The first thing I did was I went and bought it, and the reason I bought it is because I didn't have the money for the inspector to go up on the rigging of Te Amo. And I was like, you know what? I'd spend as much money buying a rigging inspector as I would just buying a drone and flying it up there and looking for myself. I thought about it a little longer. I was like, you know what? Nope, that's what I'm doing. And so in the video, First Look at Te Amo, which is a couple videos ago on the YouTube, the segment where the camera is panning or raising, is pan work for a raising action? On the sunset with Te Amo between it and the sunset is done with this drone, and it is the first time I flew this camera. And that first time I flew it ended up into a video, and it doesn't look half bad. And it's not filtered or anything, it's just straight up. One of the things that's super big about the Mavic 2s is the out-of-box polarization. The filters for the camera are kind of choppy or like crappy. So I also have a set of ND filters for it. So ND8, 16, and 32, and then polarized versions of each of those as well. The round ones are polarized and the rectangular ones are not. And I usually fly it during the day with a 16. If it was like high noon and there wasn't a cloud in the sky, I might probably fly it with a 32. I haven't quite yet figured out how to fly the polarization ones yet. I'm still learning. Yeah, once you buy the whole kit, but hopefully, I'm pretty sure the smart controller will allow me to have multiple devices but one controller. And so I only need to buy the flight platform. I don't need to buy the whole kit and caboodle. Oh, and that's the other thing about the drone that's super neat. I got 3 batteries for it. The batteries are these guys right here on the top. Right? With a push of the power button, it'll actually tell you how much charge is left. Okay? And then I have a thing. Which is kind of cool. Actually, I got to remember to use it more. Because these batteries are dense. You just take this little doodad, you throw it on the battery, and now you have a pair of rapid turbo charging ports. And you can charge cell phones and things off that. This battery, you have to turn it on, right? You turn it on and now the ports are active. This thing right here with my camera doing live streams, run the camera for an hour or 2, 3 hours, I don't even know. I've never been able to run the camera out with it, that's for sure. Yep. Oh yeah, the multi-charger. I think that's down below on the rack. Yeah, I think that one's down below. Lastly, I am using a very new purchase to me. I am using the Asus ROG STRIX. I got it off Amazon. It was not cheap. But purchasing that laptop allowed me, it was the magical moment where I could start doing these streams for you guys and providing this content. So super happy with that. It's fantastic. It edits video so quickly. It streams video so smoothly. The data off my cell phone is more than enough to support it in the stream. I'm actually talking to you right now via a Google Fi connection off of the laptop via hotspotting because the Marina Wi-Fi is so crappy. It's crap. It's crap. So we're getting a bit of a sunset, and the video platform show and tell is basically there. There's other little bits that I use, like little cheap action cams and stuff, but they're not even worth mentioning. They're like the $20-$30 Walmart specials, you know, and they don't shoot but 720p, and they're sacrificial. They have as much value to me as an old disposable camera, like one of those ones where you roll your thumb on it and it cues up the next frame, and the flash never really works. And if the light's not perfect, you never get a good picture out of it anyways. Yeah, that's those. The setup for shooting all these pictures and all these video is laughable simple. So when I take the camera off where it's currently mounted, I'll show you how I'm actually bringing you this episode. And why not? We'll do that right now. So that's my laptop. It's currently sitting on my life jackets bag. In order to lift it up high enough so that you see my face and not like the keyboard, you'll notice that it's like wide open and barely perched up there. That's how I bring you guys the streams, because I don't have a standing desk on the boat, obviously. So you kind of just prop it all together however you can. So there's that. And there's Te Amo as of today. And then we're going to set up for our fancy sunset pictures here. Oops, I need to open the... Nope, not yet. If I was richer, I might actually have multiple cameras so I don't have to fuss with this. feel like that horizon is... Yeah, there we go. That's better. That's way better. Way better. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to switch the laptop so that I'm sitting forward and not like side saddle on the rear bench of this. So give me just a second. I'm going to switch the cameras around a little bit. And because I haven't done one in a while, I think it's time for a bit of Scottish story time. So I'm pretty sure Mr. Cole is there. I hope you have your binky and your juice box, buddy. I'm thinking about you. So in order to set up my normal stream, I have a folding chair, right? And I just take that folding chair, I set it in front of me, and then I put the laptop bag, or the life jackets bag with the laptop on top of it on the chair, and then it all lines up nice and neat. So I need to move my microphone still, and I need to move that, and I need to have that, my book. Yep, okay. So bear with me. You guys are going for a ride while I figure out how to get this all figured out. All right. Can't see the screen now because the sun's on it. Posted a picture of this fiery sunrise. Oh my god. On Bowden's or mine? What else do I need? I need my microphone. It can't be behind me. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to look at that. You have to tell me if it's on Bowden's Discord or my Discord. All right, we're basically set back up. Beautiful sunset all of a sudden. I thought it was going to be just a cloudy mess today. I got a solar effect. I wonder where that glare is coming from. Right on my eyeballs. I don't want to damage the laptop camera. Take the glare out of it. All right, there we go. I'm pretty happy with that. It's 6:32, ladies and gentlemen. 6:32 p.m. Bowden's going to go live in a half an hour. I figure I'll give you guys this a little bit of a fairy tale. Nobody's hanging out in live chat, so I'm not going to worry about that. Man, look at that sunset. Ain't that gorgeous? Wow. I'm digging it. So, all right, Mark, I got a question for you, buddy. With my ASMR possibilities, I don't know if I'm gonna like do full on YouTube videos, right? I could. I mean, obviously I should, but I was thinking like making an ASMR Tipsy Raven Discord channel, and whenever I'm just hanging out on a boat, because it doesn't use very much data, I'll just set the microphone up on the rail right over top of the water and activate that voice channel and let it ride. What do you think? Will that work? I have no idea if that would work. Tinkering with the idea, man. I'm tinkering. So the last time we did this, I read the story of Thomas the Rhymer, and I'm pretty sure we did another one. Did we do another one together here on YouTube? I don't know. Oh boy. I'm pretty sure I have to read to you guys Gold Tree and Silver Tree still. Someone ring a bell? I have no idea. Doesn't ring a bell for me. I have no memory of this place. I've been rewatching Lord of the Rings with the lockdown. It's come to that. So Whippety story, out of the Scottish Fairy Tales book, Gold Tree and Silver Tree. I read Whippety story. That's the one with the dead pig, or the dying pig. Pretty sure. Yeah, I skipped Gold Tree and Silver Tree because it's a little bit longer. Yeah, I'm gonna have to tinker with that, Mark. if you're still around after Chris's Discord tonight, maybe we'll see if we can't make something of that. Because once I bought a jetpack hotspot through Verizon. It's like 30 gigs a month. And then I also have 15 gigs on my Google phone. So 45 gigs a month. I can't imagine I wouldn't be able to make that content available. So without further ado, I'm going to give you guys the story of Gold Tree and Silver Tree. Now, the neat thing about Scottish fairy tales is a lot of modern folklore ties into them. And so there's an excellent opportunity for you guys to identify some neat comparisons between this story and other stories you might be familiar with. And I might point out a couple because they amuse me notably. So, as I were, Gold Tree and Silver Tree. In bygone days, there lived a little princess named Gold Tree, and she was one of the prettiest children in the whole world. Although her mother was dead, she had a very happy life, for her father loved her dearly and thought that nothing was too much trouble so long as it gave his little daughter pleasure. But by and by he married again, and that's when the little princess' sorrows began. For his new wife, whose name, curious to say, was Silver Tree, was very beautiful, but she was also very jealous, and she made herself quite miserable for fear that some day she should meet someone that was far better looking than herself. When she found her stepdaughter was so very pretty, she took a dislike to her at once, and was always looking at her wondering if people would think her prettier than she was. And because, in her heart of hearts, she was afraid that they would do so, she was very unkind to this little girl indeed. At last, one day, when Princess Gold Tree was quite grown up, the two ladies went for a walk in a little well which lay, all surrounded by trees, in the middle of a deep glen. Now the water in this well was so clear that everyone who looked into it could see his face reflected on the surface, and the proud queen loved to come and peer into its depths, so she could see her own picture mirrored in the water. But today, as she was looking in, what should she see but a little trout, which was swimming quietly backwards and forwards not far from the surface. "Trouty, trouty, answer me this one question," said the queen. "Am I not the most beautiful woman in the world?" "No, indeed, thou art not," replied the trout, promptly, jumping out of the water as he spoke, in order to swallow a fly. "Who is the most beautiful woman, then?" exclaimed the disappointed queen, for she had expected a far different answer. "Thy stepdaughter, the Princess Gold Tree, without a doubt," said the little fish. Then, frightened by the black look that came over the jealous queen's face, he dived to the bottom of the well. It was no wonder that he did so, for the queen's expression was not pleasant to look at, as she darted an angry glance at her fair young stepdaughter, who was busy picking flowers some little distance away. Indeed, she was so annoyed at the thought that anyone should say the girl was prettier than she was, that she quite lost self-control, and when reached home, she went up in a violent passion to her room and threw herself upon the bed, declaring that she felt very ill indeed. It was in vain that Princess Gold Tree asked her what the matter was, and if she could do anything to help her. She would not let the poor girl touch her, but pushed her away as if she had done some evil thing. So at last the princess had to leave her alone and go out of the apartment looking very sad indeed. By and by the king came home from his hunting, and he asked at once for his queen. He was told that she had been seized by some sudden illness, and that she was lying on the bed of her own room, and that no one, not even the court physician, who had been hastily summoned, could make out what was quite wrong with her. In great anxiety, for he quite really loved her, the king ran up to her bedside and asked the queen how she felt, and if there's anything that he could do to relieve her. "Yes, there is but one thing thou could do," she answered harshly. "But I know full well that even although it is the only thing that will cure me, thou wilt not do it." "Nay," said the king, "I deserve better words at thy mouth than these, for thou knowest I would give thee aught thou carest to ask, even if it be half of my kingdom." "Then give me thy daughter's heart to eat," cried the queen, "for unless I can obtain that, I will die, and that speedily." She spoke so wildly and looked at him with such strange fashion that the poor king really thought her brain was turned, and he was at his wit's end what to do. He left the room and paced up and down the corridor in great distress, until at last he remembered that very morning the son of a great king had arrived from a country far over the sea and asking for his daughter's hand in marriage. "Here's the way of our difficulty," he said to himself. This marriage pleaseth me well, and will have it celebrated at once. Then, when my daughter is safely out of the country, I will send the lad up to the hillside. He shall kill a he-goat, and I will have its heart prepared and dressed and sent up to my wife. Perhaps the sight of it will cure her of this madness." So he had the strange prince summoned before him, and told the queen how the queen had taken a sudden illness that had wrought at her brain and caused her to take a dislike to the princess, and how it seemed as if it would be a good thing if, with the maiden's consent, the marriage could take place at once, so the queen might be left alone to recover from her strange malady. Now the prince was delighted to gain his bride so easily, and the princess was glad to escape her stepmother's hatred, so the marriage took place at once, and the newly wedded pair set off across the sea for the prince's country. Then the king went up and sent a lad up to the hillside to kill a he-goat, and when it was killed, he gave orders that its heart should be dressed and cooked and sent to the queen's apartment on a silver dish. And the wicked woman tasted it, believing it to be the heart of her stepdaughter, and when she had done so, she rose from her bed and went about the castle looking well and hearty as ever. I'm glad to tell you that the marriage of Princess Goldtree, which had come about in such a hurry, turned out to be a great success. For the prince whom she had wedded was rich and great and powerful, and he loved her dearly, and she was happy as the day was long. So things peacefully went on for a year, Queen Silvertree satisfied and contented, because she thought her stepdaughter was dead, while all the time the princess was quite happy and prosperous in her own new home. By the end of the year, it chanced that the queen went out once more to the well in the glen in order to see her face reflected in the water. And it chanced that the same little trout was swimming backwards and forwards, just as he had been doing the year before. And the foolish queen determined to have a better answer to her question this time than she had her last. "Trouty, Trouty," she whispered, leaning over the edge of the well, "am I not the most beautiful woman in the world?" "By my troth, thou art not," answered the trout in his very straightforward way. "Who is the most beautiful woman, then?" asked the queen, her face growing pale at the thought she had yet another rival. "Why, your majesty's stepdaughter, the Princess Goldtree, to be sure," answered the trout. The queen threw back her head with a sigh of relief. "Well, at any rate, people cannot admire her now," she said, "for it is a year since she died. I ate her heart for my supper." "Art thou sure of that, your majesty?" asked the trout, with a twinkle in his eye. "Methinks it is but a year since she married the young gallant prince, who came from abroad to seek her hand and returned with him to his own country." When the queen heard those words, she turned cold with rage, for she knew her husband had deceived her. And she rose from her knees and went straight home to the palace, and hiding her anger as best as she could, she asked if he would give orders to have the longship made ready, as she wished to go and visit her dear stepdaughter, for it was such a very long time since she had seen her. The king was somewhat surprised at her request, but he was only too glad to think that she had gotten over her hatred towards his daughter, and gave orders that the longship be made ready at once. Soon it was speeding over the water, its prow turned in the direction of the land where the princess lived, steered by the queen herself, for she knew the course the boat ought to take, and she was in such haste to be at her journey's end that she would allow no one else to take the helm. Now it chanced the Princess Goldtree was alone that day, for her husband had gone a-hunting, and as she looked out of one of her castle windows, she saw a boat coming sailing over the sea towards the landing place. She recognized it as her father's longship, and she guessed only too well whom carried aboard. She was almost beside herself with terror at the thought, for she knew that it was no good purpose that the Queen Silvertree had taken the trouble to set out to visit her, and she felt as if she would have given almost anything she possessed if her husband had been but home. In her distress, she hurried to the servants' hall. "Oh, what should I do, what should I do?" she cried. "For I see my father's longship coming over the sea, and I know that my stepmother is aboard, and if she has a chance, she will kill me, for she hateth me more than anything else upon this earth." Now the servants worshipped the ground that their young mistress trod upon, and she was always kind and considerate to them, and when she saw how frightened she was, and heard her piteous words, they crowded around her as if to shield her from any harm that threatened her. "Do not be afraid, your highness," they cried. "We will defend thee with our very lives, if must be. But in case thy lady stepmother should have power to throw any evil spell at thee, we will lock thee in the great mulinoid chamber, where she cannot get at thee at all." Now the mulinoid chamber was a strong room, which was part of the castle all by itself, and its door was so thick that no one could possibly break through it, and the princess knew that if she was once inside the room and the stout oaken door between her and the stepmother, she would be perfectly safe from any mischief that the wicked woman could devise. So she consented to have her faithful servant's suggestion, and allowed them to lock her in this mulinoid chamber. So it came to pass that when Queen Silvertree arrived at the great door of the castle and commanded the lackey who opened the door to take her to her royal mistress, he told her with a low bow that it's quite impossible because the princess was locked in the strong room of the castle and could not get out because no one knew where the key was. Which was quite true, for the old butler had tied it around the neck of the prince's favorite sheepdog and sent him away to the hills to seek his master. "Take me to the door of the apartment," commanded the queen. "At least I can speak to my dear daughter through it." And the lackey, who did not see what harm could possibly come from this, did as he was bid. "If the key is really lost, thou canst not come out to welcome me, dear Gold-tree," said the deceitful queen. "At least put thy little finger through the keyhole so that I might kiss it." The princess did so, never dreaming that evil could come through such a simple little action. But it did, for instead of kissing the tiny finger, her stepmother stabbed it with a poisoned needle, and so deadly was the poison that before she could utter a single cry, the princess fell, as one dead, on the floor. When she heard the fall, a smile of satisfaction crept over Queen Silvertree's face. "Now I can say I am the most handsomest woman in the world," she whispered, and she went back to the lackey who stood waiting at the end of the passage and told him that she had said all there was to say to her daughter, and now she must return home. So the man attended her to the boat with all due ceremony, and she set sail for her own country, and no one in the castle knew any harm had befallen the dear mistress until the prince came home from his hunting with the key of the Molinoid chamber, which he had taken from his sheepdog's neck, in his hand. He laughed when he heard the story of Queen Silvertree's visit and told the servants that they had done well. Then he ran upstairs to open the door and release his wife. But what was his horror and dismay when he did so, to find her lying dead at his feet upon the floor. He was nearly beside himself with rage and grief, and because he knew what a deadly poison such the Queen Silvertree had used would preserve the princess's body so that it had no need of burial, he had it laid on a silken couch and left in the Molinoid chamber so that he could go back and look upon it whenever so he pleased. He was terribly lonely, however, and in a little time he married again, and the second wife had just been as sweet and good as the first one had been. This new wife was very happy, and there was only one little thing that caused her any trouble at all, and she was too sensible to let it make her miserable. The one thing, of course, was the one room in the castle, a room which stood at the end of the passage by itself, which she could never enter, as her husband always carried the key, and as, when she asked him what the reason of this was, he always made some excuse of some kind, and she made up her mind she would not seem as if she did not trust him. So she asked no more questions on the matter. But one day the prince chanced to leave the door unlocked, and since he had never told her not to do so, she went in and saw the Princess Gold-tree laying upon the silken couch, looking as if she were asleep. "Is she dead, or is she only sleeping?" she asked to herself, and she went up to the couch and looked closely at the princess, and there, sticking in her little finger, she discovered a curiously shaped needle. "There hath been an evil work here," she thought to herself. "If that needle not be poisoned, then I know naught of medicine," and being skilled in leechcraft, she carefully drew it out. In a moment, and only a moment, the Princess Gold-tree opened her eye and sat up, and presently she had recovered sufficiently to tell the other princess the whole story. Now, if her stepmother had been jealous, the other princess was not jealous at all, for when she heard what had happened, she clapped her little hands together, crying, "Oh, how glad the prince shall be, for although he hath married again, I know that he loves thee best." That night, when the prince came home from a hunting and looking very tired and sad, for what his wife had said was quite true, although he loved her very much, he was always in mourning in his heart of hearts for his first dear true love, Princess Gold-tree. Regicide, this declaration of war. War! You don't have to talk a Scotsman into that too hard. "How sad thou art!" exclaiming his wife, going out to meet him. "Is there nothing I can do to bring a smile to thy face?" "Nothing," answered the prince warily, laying down his bow, for he was too heart-sore to even pretend to be gay. "Except give thee back Gold-tree," said his wife mischievously, "and that I can do. That will find her alive and well in the Molinoid chamber." Without a word, the prince ran upstairs, and sure enough, there was his dear Gold-tree sitting on the couch ready to welcome him. He was so overjoyed to see her that he threw his arms around her neck and kissed her over and over and over again, quite forgetting his poor second wife, who had followed him upstairs, who now stood watching quietly the meeting she had brought about herself. She did not seem to worry about herself, however. "I always knew that thy heart yearned after Princess Gold-tree," she said, and it is but right that it should be so, for she was thy first true love, and since she hath come to life again, I will go back to mine own people." "No, indeed, thou wilt not," answered the prince, "for it is thou who hast brought me this joy. Thou wilt stay with us, and we shall all three live happily together, and Gold-tree and thee will become great friends." And so it came to pass, for the Princess Gold-tree and the other princess soon became like sisters, and loved each other as if they had been brought up together all their lives. In this manner another year passed, and one evening in the old country, Queen Silvertree went, as she had done before, to look at her face in the water of the little well by the glen. And, as it happened twice before, the trout was there. "Trouty, trouty," she whispered. Am I not most beautiful woman in the world? By my troth, thou art not, answered the trout, as he had answered on the previous 2 occasions. And who thou say is the most beautiful woman now? Answered the queen, her voice trembling in rage and vexation. I've given her name to thee these past 2 years back, said the trout. Princess Goldtree, of course. But she is dead, laughed the queen. I am sure of it this time, for it is years since I stabbed her little finger with a poisoned needle, and I heard her fall dead on the floor. I would not be so sure of that, answered the trout, without saying another word, as he dived straight to the bottom of the well. After hearing his mysterious words, the queen could not rest, and at last she asked her husband to have the longship prepared once more, so that she could go and see her stepdaughter. The king gave his order gladly, and it all happened as it happened before. She steered the ship across the sea with her own hands, and when approaching the land, it was seen and recognized by Princess Goldtree. The prince was out a-hunting, and the princess ran in great terror to her friend, the other princess, who was upstairs in her chamber. Oh, what should I do, what should I do? She cried, for I see my father's longship coming, and I know that my cruel stepmother is aboard, and she will try to kill me as she has tried to kill me before. Oh, come, let us escape to the hills. Yeah, right? You gotta like it, Mark. Not at all, replied the other princess, throwing her arms around the trembling Goldtree. I am not afraid of thy lady stepmother. Come with me, and we will go down to the seashore and greet her. So they both went down to the edge of the water, and when Queen Silvertree saw her stepdaughter coming, she pretended to be very glad, and sprang out of the boat and ran to meet her, and held out a silver goblet full of wine for her to drink. "'Tis rare wine from the east," she said, "and therefore very precious. I brought a flagon with me, so that we might pledge each other in a loving cup." Princess Goldtree, who was ever gentle and courteous, would have stretched out her hand for the cup if not the other princess had stepped between her and her stepmother. "Nay, madame," she said gravely, looking at the queen straight in the face, "it is the custom in this land for the one who offers a loving cup to drink from it first." "I will follow the custom gladly," answered the queen, as she raised the goblet to her mouth. But the other princess, who was watching her closely, noticed that she did not swallow the wine, or allow the wine that it contained to touch her lips. So she stepped forward, and as if by accident, struck the bottom of the goblet with her shoulder. All part of its contents flew into the queen's face, and part of that, before she could shut her mouth, went down her throat. So, because of her wickedness, she was, as the good book says, caught in her own net. For she had made the wine so poisonous, almost before she had swallowed it, she fell dead at the 2 princesses' feet. No one was sorry for her, for she really deserved her fate, and they buried her hastily in a lonely piece of ground, and soon everybody had forgotten all about her. As for the Princess Goldtree, she lived happily and peacefully with her husband and her friend for the remainder of her life. Look, little Scottish polyamory right there. Kind of curious what the name of the other princess was. I keep telling myself I got to research some of these stories and find the missing bits. So obviously, the story is very reminiscent, or rather, another story is very reminiscent of this story. The story of Sleeping Beauty, of course. The queen's heart, or the make-believe queen's heart, was the red apple, right? The poison that knocked her flat. There's even a little Beauty and Beast in this story of the woman locked away, the love locked away in the wing of the castle, long forgotten, and it takes somebody else to show up and set it free. Obviously, it doesn't play quite out like Beauty and the Beast does, but it's got its comparisons. There's another story in this book, The Black Bull of Bannockburn, I think it's called. That is very Beauty and the Beast, and it's a really fun read, and we'll do that here soon. There's a bunch of other little things in here. Not a lot of fairies in this fairy tale, which is okay. A lot of Scottish folklore, it doesn't need fairies to be what it is. But a really fun story. Wears all of its morals and all of its themes right on its sleeve, and so very easy read, easy to understand, easy to follow story. I hope that you all enjoyed the stream tonight. We're running out of time at the bottom of the hour here, at the top of the hour rather, and I want to shut it down so that you all can get over to Chris Bowden's stream, which is firing up in the next 5 minutes or so. We'll be streaming again next week for certain. I might do a stream tomorrow at 6 p.m. the same hour. Depends on what I get done during the day. I may decide to take a little break from streaming for tomorrow. I sincerely appreciate any likes, loves, subs, shares. Shares are really big right now because I'm trying to build the community. I appreciate everybody hanging out with me today. Cole, Mark, Colonel Panic, whose real name I don't actually know offhand, and Jessica. I saw you in there earlier. I'm not entirely sure if you're still hanging out. And then let's bounce over to the multi-stream tool and see if anybody... Oh, yeah, there's all kinds of conversation on multi-stream. Dave Slack. Hey, Dave, how's it going, buddy? I'm sorry I didn't notice you were on earlier. I might actually have to start using this because it looks like it's putting YouTube and Facebook all in one stream. That's kind of handy. So, like I said, I hope you all enjoyed the story. I've already read this one on Facebook, so for some of you it might be a repeat, but anybody on YouTube, probably a brand new story, so I hope it was super fun. Maybe another one tomorrow about the same time of day. We'll see how it goes. But for right now, I'll see you guys next time.
I take a breath, I'm not gonna lose. This is what I came here to do. I walk that wire and I take that step. Won't look down, got no regrets. Won't look down, got no regrets. I was made for this. That's where I feel alive. Open up the skies. I'm a soul on a wire. That's where I feel alive. Open up the skies. I am free to fly. I was made for this. I was made for this. Born in the wild, born in the fire, built for the battle. I was made for this. I was made for this. Mind over matter, silence the doubters. I had the power. I was made for this. I was made for this. I was made for this.
Tell me it can't be done.